All right, so here we go. Yet again, another what we would like to call podcast. So, what's new and exciting with Henry? And you do have to tell me about that picture behind you at some point.
All right, what's new and exciting? Not really that much. I'm just living my life. It doesn't pertain to me, I don't think. I think everybody's what they're going through now is there's this. I have a feeling of There's a relaxed attitude towards COVID and the coronavirus.
So you and I are opposite.
No, I think that people are so fed up and are like, I've never worried about COVID, of catching COVID.
Yeah.
I've worried about the ramifications of COVID on the economy and the supply chain and society, but actually catching COVID never scared me.
Yeah. Me neither.
But I've always been sort of relaxed about it, about catching COVID or not catching COVID. But I have a sense that people in general are more relaxed about it. I don't think I think the panic has subsided in society, in Sudbury anyways, or maybe in Canada. Probably a lot to do is because the cases are going down and
people get fed up pretty much.
Yeah. And people are vaccinated, and it just seems like the atmosphere is just so much nicer. There's not that, like last year when we had the first lockdown, people are waiting outside in line to get into a grocery store. And it was just a sense of uncertainty. And, and that permeated too. I really felt a sense of uncertainty, not about getting COVID, but I was afraid, oh my God, there's going to be bread lines and there's a toilet paper shortage. And
the zombies are coming.
Yeah, the zombies are coming. There's going to be martial law, And then they started coming out with the fines, and oh my God, it's just like horrible. About the only really, other than that, new thing is I've been having lots of bonfires in my backyard.
Nice.
And friends of mine have just dropped a pile of wood. So I'm just kind of just living a boring, probably stable life where nothing spectacular happens. And that's
overall,
that's me.
Life is good.
Yeah, generally life is good.
It's a good feeling.
I mean, there's always something else you want, but
yeah,
but
overall,
life is good. It's where I'm at is better than I have hoped for.
Cool. I was listening to somebody the other day on YouTube. I can't remember who, but they were saying that there were 3 types of people as far as reactions are concerned. And I never heard about this before. I kind of knew about it subconsciously. And then I thought, oh yeah, I'm in that 3rd category. So there's 3 types. There are people who have like nothing much has changed. And I'm going to put you in that category. You were already in a kind of a groove, let's coast along, and COVID came, nothing much changed. And then there are those who are really distressed. And then there are those who are doers and they do shit about it. So I'm in the 2nd category, distressed, and I recognize that. and I'm not, that's not my nature. I think I've always felt I was always a doer, somebody who looked at anything that is a problem, and I look at them as opportunities. There's always a way through it, and it's always temporary if it looks like it's permanent. But this situation has really distressed me, and I think possibly in large part it's because, up to 40% of small businesses are gone. I read an article on that last week, and I was shocked. I thought 40%, that's got to be wrong. That's a high number. Well, let's assume for a minute it is wrong and it's an exaggeration. So let's say more realistically, it's half that. Okay, 20% is still way, way too high in my opinion. And but let's suppose it's right, and it is 40%. I mean, man, that is destructive and catastrophic. And I also say that with respect to my own, because I own a small business and I haven't worked in 6 months now, and last year 3 months. So last year when we went back to work, things bounced back and they were really healthy, and that was good. And then December they locked down again, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, they can lock down. I had a good run. We got money in the bank, and we had a good 5-6 months now. But then after about 2 weeks, I was getting angry and bitter. I was like, those fuckers, who are they to tell me I can't open? So it started to chew away at me. And then it's been, 6 months. So I don't want to sound negative, but I have this feeling and fear that I'm starting to piss off some of my friends and my wife especially. So I really pull back on this, and I'm forcing myself to be at peace with it in one way, shape, or form. So it's my nature. It's my nature to want to know what's going on. And it reminds me of a story when my daughter was 6. We were driving down the Kingsway, and she says to me, "Dad, oh, I have a question. I just had this thought." I'm like, "What's wrong? What is it?" She goes, "Is there a God that made God?"
Oh.
She's 6 years old. And I'm like, "What? Where did you get that from?" She goes, "I don't know. I was just thinking about it. Is there?" And I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's called a theory. You have a theory." So I was explaining to her, I mean, that's a good thing to have theories and to ask questions as to what is the nature of things and why are things the way they are. And when she was older, I told her that story, and I told her, I said, "I'm so sorry. I mean, you got that from me. I'm that way. I want to know, is there a God that made God?" I have this endless inquisitive side to me. And Satch.
Yes.
And Satch I had a chat with him last week, and he was telling me that too. He was talking about a tree that was planted in his yard that his landlady had planted, and it was like a bad tree to plant there because it creates problems. And he's going on about it, and he's all like scientific, right? And I'm like, "How did you know that?" He goes, "I read a lot, and I'm really, really curious." And it was almost to a sense like it's not necessarily a good thing to be endlessly curious, because you always got to know, is there a God that made God? So it's an affliction in many ways, but at the same time, I'm really curious about stuff, and I wish I had a memory like yours, where I can remember at least half the stuff.
Okay, I have a thought about God, what you just mentioned.
All right.
Okay, did God be created by another God? When I think of God, I think of this. There can only be one God. To me, a God is the beginning of everything. So there's nothing before that. So God, whether he's always been around or whatever, I kind of link that with the universe and multiverse.
Okay, I was hoping you were going to say multiverse.
Okay, now the universe, to me, a universe means everything. Everything that there is the universe. Okay,
everything.
So yeah, everything. Now you got all these scientists talking about multiverses, multiple universes, and I'm thinking, doesn't universe mean everything? So there are groups of everything, but if there's groups of everything, those everythings in the groups aren't really everything. There may be everything in their region. So maybe like the multiverse is actually a universe because it's everything. So I don't know if I'm making sense. It's kind of like, okay, so let's say there's a multiverse where you get universes. We should change the name, the terminology. Instead of the multiverse being the multiverse is the universe, and the universe are like super duper galaxies or something, or mini universes.
So the universe, as you describe it, would encompass everything, including possibly any other dimensions that might be out there.
Yes. To me, when I think of universe, it means the totality of everything. And but when they say a multiverse, it's almost like a contradiction. It's like first you have the totality of everything, but then you have several of them. So then they're not really the totality of everything. It's the combination of all those items are the totalitarian of everything.
The totality.
Yeah, the totality. Yes. So
I guess.
And then there's the what if there's multiple multiverses?
Yeah,
that's another.
Which there could be.
I don't even know if there's a theory about that. But
well, let's just say this: the way you defined it would pretty much encompass all of that.
Yes.
I mean, that's it's semantics. Really, at this point in time, you're just describing it. You're creating a definition that we can logically. It's kind of like the Oprah version.
Like, but before Edwin Hubble discovered that the galaxies that were actually other galaxies other than the Milky Way, and that they're all expanding.
Yeah.
People thought that the Milky Way was the entire universe.
Yeah, that was
and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, so maybe the universe should have a different name as opposed to universe, because it's no longer an actual universe. It's It's
Well,
like,
doesn't the term universe, that means one
yes,
already? So, and
yeah,
if there's multiverses in there, it would encompass all of that if you were to define it that way.
yeah. I don't
Uni
know.
means one. I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
complicated question.
Yes. On another note, when you mentioned when your daughter mentioned who created God.
No, she asked if there a God that made God.
Oh, okay.
But that's a good question,
All right.
nevertheless. I'm sure it was bouncing around in her brain.
There's a video on YouTube with Stephen Hawking's talking about why there didn't need to be a God to create a universe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that long of a video, but it kind of shook me up because I kind of agreed with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that prior to the Big Bang Theory, there was nothing, not even time. And in order to create something, there has to be time and there has to be a creator.
Yeah.
So on a physics level, there was no God before the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
And that kind of shook me. It almost like disproved that there were, like he was trying to say, this is why I don't believe that God created the universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because in order to create something, you need time, even if it's a nanosecond, which is a billionth of a second.
Yeah.
But there's no time prior to the universe. Okay, so then I kind of compromised with myself saying, well, maybe God was created along with the universe. And it did that to appease my faith, as opposed to instead of God created the universe.
Yeah.
Prior to the universe, there was nothing, not even God.
Yeah.
And when the universe was created, God was the head of the universe.
Yeah.
And it came along as the universe was created. So I kind of worked that out for myself. That's sort of what I'm thinking, I don't think about it barely anymore. I don't really worry about it. I don't know. And I don't.
Me neither. Yeah.
Actually, a lot of times I don't care. So.
Well, I've been eternally on a quest for at least coming up with some sort of a definition that's personal and a pursuit, I guess you might say, of faith. And minimally, I believe at some level there's a collective unconsciousness. The universe, there's a universal flow somewhere, and it's sort of connected to our actions and our. I don't know. It's weird, but. I've read many books in my early 20s on self-help and stuff like that, and the laws of success, because I was largely a lost soul, so I was looking for direction, and that's why I read a lot of these books. They really filled in that hole for me. So, but I remember the term universe. What the hell is the term? Something universe was, and it's very much the same as
omniverse, maybe?
No, No, it's just the intelligence, cosmic intelligence, universal intelligence. There's something there, and that's as general as it's been described. But another term that a lot of people are familiar with is like a higher power. You could say that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. It's not as specific as when you have a religiously defined God or higher supernatural force. With all these components, like the saints and the prayers and the traditions and the symbols and all that stuff. Put that aside. If there's just a cosmic intelligence, at least I'm feeling very strong about that as being a thing, because there's just too many things that have happened that hint at it for me. I'm not going to say they specifically happened to create, it's not like I had an apparition of like, and it was like, oh man, that's got to be the universe talking here. It's just little things that cause me to at least believe that there's potentially something there. Does that make any sense? Am I making any sense whatsoever?
Actually, yeah. I can see the sense in that.
It's kind of a secular version or view of God, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I've met atheists in my life, and I've toyed with atheism. And I can't believe we're talking about all this stuff because, man, where do we get these ideas from? But the ones I've met have all been sort of angry. And I've read, some articles, and I'm like, these guys are just angry. That's all. They're not saying anything. So I kind of pulled away from that and went into at least an agnostic view.
Yeah. Here's the thought, and I probably have mentioned this before, but just for the sake of argument, let's say there's other intelligent alien or sentient beings or civilizations throughout the universe.
And there could be, right?
Yeah, there could be. And do they have a spirituality? Do they believe in a God?
Well, I'm going to put that question in the same question that my daughter asked: is there a God that made God? If is alien life out there, do they have a spirituality? That's a good question.
Like, okay, I'm going to be facetious here, but let's say there's a planet of reptilian type beings that are really intelligent.
On the moon?
No, just there's a planet somewhere in the galaxy.
Okay. I don't know if you're going with the David Icke sort of.
Well, okay, maybe David Icke is right, but anyways, so there is a civilization of reptilian beings that are highly intelligent, and they have houses and have technology, and they speak with each other, and they have abstract thought. And okay, now do they have a reptilian Jesus? Like on their, do they have a gecko on the cross, or or some sort of reptile on the cross? Like, did God? Are we the only civilization that needed a savior? Like, if you would believe in the Christianity, God sent His only Son to save the world, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's say, just for the sake of argument, there's 1 billion intelligent civilizations with souls throughout the universe. Now, are we the only one that needed a savior, or are all the intelligent civilizations, or some of them? Okay, so did God send, like, let's say 957 million of His sons to all across the universe, different parts throughout history, to save that civilization?
You're talking about one God for all civilizations.
Yes.
What about what you just said a minute ago, the idea that all these civilizations, wouldn't it be funny and kind of bizarre if they all had at least a similar sort of symbolic ideology as what you just described?
Yeah.
There was a higher supernatural force that came down and saved the world. And there was this, they would sacrifice. There was some sort of whatever crucifixion or whatever it was that they had to go through. And it was like a similar pattern.
Yes.
The way Star Wars is really a Western,
right?
In space, good guys versus bad guys, good versus evil sort of thing. And weird questions. I guess we'll never know.
I read a book. It was actually part of a 4-part book series called Arthur C. Clarke. Rama, Rendezvous with Rama, Rama Revealed, Gardens of Rama. So, okay, so there's a spaceship, and it's got humans on it, and it's got different species of intelligent life from different civilizations. Mm-hmm. So the spaceship is going around the galaxy collecting different civilizations, and they're going to be putting them in a big space zoo, okay?
A space zoo?
Yes. Anyways, there's this one group of beings called the Avians. They're like bird-like creatures. They're kind of like bipedal bird-like creatures, but they're very intelligent and they're good. Because there's a scene in the book where one of the Earthlings is lost. It's a really big spacecraft. It's like 30 miles long and 12 miles across. It's like a cylinder that rotates.
Yeah.
So one of the characters is lost, and the Avian helps her, brings her food and everything, and just looks after her. So I'm thinking, is there like a race of Avians that have like a bird Jesus? Like, are they? Anyway, it's just food for thought. I like thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a creative thought process. It's thought games. It's fun to think of those things, and at the same time, it can really trouble someone. You mentioned Hubble a minute ago, which reminded me of a book I read when I was 21 called The Discoverers.
Okay.
And it was a story. It was like it wasn't a fictional book. It was a historical explanation of all the major discoveries that have happened throughout history. And I believe Hubble was mentioned in that. And how the majority of things that were discovered, if not all the things that were discovered, we're talking like geology and tectonic plates and physics and astronomy. All the major areas were, for the most part, the people who led the way and made the first initial discoveries were amateurs. So Hubble was an amateur astronomer. And I would dare say this guy was too. Einstein, he worked at a patent office and he came up with the theory of relativity. So interesting. It's just interesting. A little bit of trivia there that I found fascinating way back when, that all these major discoveries were made by people originally who were just not academics. They were not formally academically trained. They just had a passion and a drive and a pursuit. So,
anyways, you asked about the picture.
I did.
Okay.
And I want to go back to Einstein later.
All right. Okay. So that is me around age 19 or 20.
Get out of here.
Okay, so it's not that good of a picture because a lot of it is faded out because I had a flood in my basement in 2015.
It's a little worse for wear. Any way you can bring it up closer?
Yeah.
You look like a rock star.
Yeah, so that was me when I was Cambrian college days.
This is back in the 70s, digging the glasses.
Late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
No, late 70s, 79, I think.
What a cool dude. He looks like a rock star.
I had that was a black and red plaid wool, you know, those Mackinac jackets, whatever you call those.
Yeah.
Type. So that was that. And I had long hair. Actually, I had hair back then. I had long hair. And yeah, so I found that in my basement. I'm doing a purge at my house. So it's like, oh, I haven't seen this in a while, but it's a shame that a lot of it is the dampness got to it. But
it's
so
cool
that's
picture.
what it is. So that's who it is.
I would have never known.
No? Okay, I'll give you a closer look. I don't know.
Isn't that something?
Anyways, for those of you who recognize me from that era.
Is there anyone out there?
Yeah, so give me a call. Yeah. And that was taken at Cambrian College, actually.
Can I show a picture of me when I was about the same age?
Sure.
All right.
Oh, boy.
All right, I'm going to just share it. Can you see it?
Oh, my God. Wow. Interesting.
I had great hair too, eh?
Yeah, and you got the little mustache. You got
little peach fuzz.
the Camaro mustache.
And I had the camera strap. So I was 19 years old here.
Wow.
I had gone to Cambrian for one semester just prior to this. This was taken in February in BC, northern Queen Charlotte Islands. And I discovered photography there. And I carried my first camera. So there we go. That's we're about the same age.
Yeah.
We would have been good friends back then.
Probably, yeah. We probably would have been drinking at the bars and
probably would have had a few episodic experiences. You never know.
Yes.
So interesting. So cool. I would have never known that was you. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
About wars. Because why are men so violent, and why is there so much violence in history and wars? I mean, people get down on that.
Yeah.
And some people want to erase history for that reason, and some people want to blame men exclusively and say, well, we got to put the blame, we have to assign blame as if that's going to help matters.
Yeah.
My opinion, and the reason I bring that up is because I find it fascinating. Why are we so violent, and have been since really the beginning of mankind? So, and I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking, if somebody asked that question, or if I started debating somebody that topic, how would I best explain it to them in very, very simple terms? Besides the fact that it's just something that's happened, and we do the best we can with what we got. So we try to be not violent. We try to be ethical and moral. We try to live our lives right. So, however, humans have been violent. But I think the best way to describe it is if you see, this is probably because on YouTube I've been watching a lot of bear videos.
Bear videos.
I find bears fascinating.
Like carnivore bears.
Just bears, bear attacks, bear encounters.
Yeah.
I've read many books on bears. I find them very fascinating. Grizzly bears and black bears specifically. And so if you ever see two male bears meet in the wild, they always fight. So the reason we're that way is very much the same reason that male bears fight. and it's our nature. It's as simple as that, and it's linked to testosterone. So, and again, we have this natural drive, and it's kind of primitive in many, many ways, but we need to funnel it and use it to the best of our ability instead of assigning blame and shame and trying to use this, this feminist ideology, this radical feminist ideology that male masculinity is toxic, which is bullshit, right? It's complete bullshit in my opinion. And they assign that description of toxicity to maleness because of this aggression that we have. And if you're looking at it from strictly a biological approach, it's 100% linked to testosterone. And testosterone was created, and we evolved with testosterone from a biological and evolutionary stance. So it was how we survived. I mean, somebody had to get out there and fight the forces and go get the food and defend the tribe. And so the ladies were the nurturers making the babies, and the men were out there doing what they had to do, fighting other tribes and or killing animals to bring food home. So now that brings me to Camille Paglia. I love Camille Paglia. She's if anybody doesn't know who she is, she's a professor. I'm not sure what, perhaps literature or something. She's pretty smart. She's a feminist from old school 60s and 70s. She's in her 70s. When you listen to her talk, she sounds like she's a squirrel on acid or a squirrel on cocaine. She's very, but she's genius. And I remember something she said years ago, actually a couple things she said. She said that there is no female Einstein because there's no female Jack the Ripper.
Oh, interesting.
That is interesting, isn't it? There's no female Einstein because there's no female Jack the Ripper. You can link what I just said earlier to testosterone. And testosterone was and is the driving force behind the aggression, but it's also the driving force behind the drive to want to get out there, find ways to survive, find ways to search new lands, and go on that sense of adventure. And you can also sort of link that idea to most of the great stories, which is like the Joseph Campbell, the hero with 1,000 faces, which means you go on a journey of a heroic journey, which is a journey that you go to discover yourself and your identity and your purpose. And it's been largely linked to the male gender, largely throughout history. But women go through it too, but largely it's a male thing, and there's a reason for that. And Camille also mentioned that in one of her other statements, which was that, I can't remember what it was. I'll think of it and get back to you on that one. But there's this idea that men are more predisposed and or need to kind of go through that journey to find their purpose in life. So there's a better way to phrase it. But anyways, it's a fascinating thing, I find, because it defines the biological side of things and why things are the way they are, instead of feeling guilt and shame and trying to be divisive and all that. But I also find it a little bit tragic that testosterone levels have been declining from one generation to the next. Like apparently the T levels from the 80s to now, it's like dropped like half.
Wow.
So that explains man buns and
Yeah, I heard that if you have too many soy products, you'll grow a man bun.
Automatically.
Even if you're bald.
Even if you're bald. So you have any thoughts on that, or?
Okay, I look at it differently. I don't look at it as a testosterone thing. I
Well,
look at it.
I'm not saying it's just testosterone.
Oh, okay,
I'm
okay.
saying that that hormone plays a role,
Yeah, it does. It does.
biologically speaking.
It does. I look at it as too many people and fear of losing resources thing.
Yeah.
I really believe that people, it's better for people to live in smaller settlements. Like
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
a tribe of 100, 150. Yeah. When you get too many outside, and it's almost an act, everybody's tribal. People want to stick with their tribe, and there's a suspicion or fear of another tribe or another group of people, or whether they're the same species or not species, but race or whatever. But it's a tribal territorial thing.
Yeah.
And it's almost a self-preservation type thing. So I think most wars are for resources and ego. Like the guys starting the wars are probably dictators, megalomaniacs, and they want to achieve some sort of godlike status or power.
Probably.
And they're smart enough to manipulate the masses to go along. And there's lots of reasons for wars. I think lately it's for financial gain. Like Iraq, the invasion of Iraq was not to get the weapons of mass destruction, because there was none, but it's probably to get a lot of these companies in there. Yep. And also to make an American presence in that area. Like it's a control thing. People, if it isn't for money, it's for control. People are afraid of giving up control over an area or something.
Control and a sense of purpose, even though it's distorted. But no, I totally agree. And I was listening to Joe Rogan earlier, and they were talking about, why is he so driven to want to just be this larger than life godlike figure? And that's kind of what they were saying, that and it's like they're just looking for a way to count.
Yeah, that's because when he was 2 years old, his mommy put him on the potty backwards. I'm just being facetious.
Well, there could be a core element of truth to what you just said. So,
I heard that the reason Trump is the way he is because his father was a real tyrant.
Yeah,
he could never please his father, and his father kind of imbued the value that you have to be on top or else you're nothing.
Yeah,
you always have to be fighting and being top dog, and he probably is still trying to please his father. That's probably the theory I heard. I forget where, but I heard that theory. So yeah, I think a lot of people do things because of what their parents did or didn't do to them.
Yeah, who knows? So these are thoughts that I have and things that keep me up at night.
Nothing keeps me up at night.
No, nothing really keeps me up at night. I meant that sort of like as an expression.
Once in a while, if there's some big issue in my life that is unexpected, like a few years ago when I got ripped off a bunch of money and was facing bankruptcy, that kept me up at night. Yeah. I had a hard time sleeping for a while but once that got all settled, I'm fine.
That was catastrophic in some ways, wasn't it?
It was. That was my last real big catastrophe in my life.
Stressful.
It's kind of like the bottom drops out inside, and it's like I call it, like all of a sudden it's like your stomach. I felt like my stomach and my lungs are filling up with cold water.
Yeah.
It's that. Oh God! It's like you're just falling down into a hole.
Yeah.
Thing, and it's horrible. It's horrible. So I guess everybody goes through something like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes in their lives. Let's say, for instance, some guy's wife leaves him. That's never happened to me because I've never been married, but I've never had anybody leave me. And it's like, I can only imagine how horrible that must feel. Unless, of course, you want her to leave you, but that's another story. But
yeah. I totally blanked out that. I had 5 thoughts and they all converged and turned into a porridge of words.
Well, before you go back to that, what do you think of the whole John McAfee thing? What happened to him?
Yeah, he probably.
John McAfee.
Yeah, he was a strange cat, man. I watched some interviews with him last year, and I read some stuff about him. He was a strange cat. and this kind of ties in, I think, to some degree, at least with, you know, especially as we get older. I'm talking about largely the men's journey, not so much for women, because I'm not a woman, but I look at him. If I just pull back and take a big picture look at John McAfee, he was a self-professed alcoholic. He drank a quart of booze a day, and he smoked. And he was like, if you want to define a sexual miscreant, he's probably going to be way up there with the worst of the worst. Apparently,
I saw a documentary about him, and they interviewed a couple of hookers or women that with him, and he would have them defecate on him.
Yeah, so he had some crazy stuff like that.
Really like twisted stuff. So
yeah,
and he was a real sex maniac. And you got to hand it to him. The guy was pretty old, and he still had his mojo. So you know, I would, in a way, I admire that. But
well, in a sense, though, you look at it and you describe what you described as far as the way that's manifested for him. It's kind of twisted, and it gets a bit silly when you think, okay, why is he chasing down that versus taking like, I look at it this way: you can become the old fool,
right,
or you can become like Gandalf.
Right.
Probably better to go down the road of Gandalf. And I look at John McAfee as the old fool. I mean, if you watch some of those videos, you look at this guy and he's like, oh man, he's off his rocker. And he probably made a lot of, he was very, very intelligent, but he probably made a lot of decisions and did a lot of stuff that put him to where he was eventually in his 70s, where he was being pursued by the United States. And, you know, he had these ideas that didn't jive, and they were after him. And that's why, well, the story is he was
there for tax evasion.
He was in Spain, and they wanted him, and they were going to extradite him, and then he committed suicide. Apparently, that's the way the story goes.
Yeah.
And apparently, they're saying he was not Epstein. Is it Epstein? Yeah, Epstein. So they killed him.
Oh, I don't know.
That's the conspiracy.
Yeah, there's always he got Epstein
because he was putting out comments and saying beforehand that, you know, if I disappear or if I die, you know, I don't know. So what are your thoughts on the whole thing?
Okay, honestly, I don't know enough about him other than he was quite the deviant and very flamboyant, kind of bombastic type of individual. Made lots of money. Really was into the excess. I think he had a really big ego. I saw one documentary about him. I forget the name of the documentary, but and it's sad. I feel sad that a man of that talent and greatness and makes all this money, and although he still died a millionaire, but that he had to go down that route where he just it was driven for whatever demons or whatever. And now whether he killed himself, I think he killed himself because he probably has enough of an ego saying they're not going to take me alive type thing. I don't want to spend the rest, because they were going to give him like 30 years, and the guy's 75, so he'll never get out. He'll die in prison. So I don't blame him. If you're 75 and you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life, like if you're poor and you have no place to live, that's probably a good deal to go to jail for the rest of your life because you'll be taken care of. But this guy is like on top of his game for so long and running his life the way he wants to run it. And all of a sudden he's going to be under the thumb of authority.
Yeah.
Like in prison, they tell you what to do, when to go to the bathroom, whatever. So he probably says, well, I'm not going to do that. So
not his thing.
I'll off myself. So I leaning towards that. I don't know enough about, like, did he have a bunch of information on people that he was going to reveal, or
who knows? Like,
I don't know. I'm leaning towards he just didn't want to give in. It's like the story of the guy who kills himself before he gets executed because he wanted to do it himself. He didn't want the state to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of thinking that's sort of the same scenario where he's in jail. He's going to be extradited. He's facing the rest of his life in prison, and he doesn't want to go out that way. So he'll kind of take this power back and take himself out.
Could be. Could very well be. Maybe we'll never know. Just like we'll never know.
Like who really killed John F. Kennedy?
Yeah, and Epstein and all the people that were associated with the Clintons and got suicided.
Yeah, they got suicided. Yes.
There's a compelling argument to be made for that, and not to go down the road of conspiracies, but okay, let me change.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Let me change subjects then.
Yeah.
Transgenders. Do you heard about that New Zealand weightlifter?
What I heard was that she won, or it won. I'm not going to call her a she because okay. YouTube banned me. It's not a she. It's at best, it's sort of a anomaly type female, anomalous type sexuality. She's an anomaly, or it's an anomaly. But no, I don't agree, because I saw a picture of her, and she's really big, and she looks like a man, and of course she's going to win all these lifting, powerlifting, or weightlifting contests. And I totally agree with the women that are upset about this. I would be upset too. It's like
a lot of women are.
It's just not fair. It's just it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Maybe they should just have a transgender Olympics where you have your transgender females, then you get your transgender males, and just have an Olympics for them, because the playing field will be even.
Well, here's some interesting math I want to throw at you.
Okay.
I often thought, if I ever got into a debate with somebody, which I don't really want to get into any debates, especially not about transgenderism, but I find it's a strange thing that there are clinics that are going up all over the United States, possibly Canada, and at the institutional level, and I'm talking about government institutions, the medical institutions, and schools, they're pushing the transgender. So if a 14-year-old girl decides she's a boy and she goes to a doctor, and the doctor by decree, by law, has to go along with her and cannot try and say to her, look, why don't you just take it easy, don't do anything drastic, which you would think would be the logical.
Yeah.
Because the percentage is very high that 90% of them grow out of it and go, yeah, it was a phase. And they call it body dysmorphia, right? So, but all of those arguments aside, my number one argument, and I'm not saying this to say I'm against transgenderism, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying biologically, it's impossible for a man to become a woman or a woman to become a man. And here's why. You got two chromosomes, right? For the most part. Some people have conditions, and they're very, very rare. But we have an XX, which is a woman, and an XY, right?
Yeah.
So how many chromosomes do we have in each cell? There's 46.
Excuse me.
Bless you. So I felt that. So how many cells in the average human body? Do you know what that number is?
No, I don't.
I think it's like 75 trillion.
Okay.
So 75 trillion, or maybe it's 15 trillion. I can't read my writing. It's a lot. So I did the math. So let's assume it's 75 trillion times 46 chromosomes. That comes up to 690 trillion chromosomes in your body that determine your gender. You can't change that. You can't flip from an XY to XX. So that's my main argument. At the biological level, it's impossible to change. You can go ahead and change it if you want and call yourself the opposite sex. That's fine. I'm okay with that. And I know a dude who switched, and was totally okay with it. I was like, yeah, hey, how you doing? Life is good, and total respect. But to say that it's possible biologically when it's not. And it kind of troubles me that at the ideology is pushed at those levels throughout our culture and society these days, because it just tells me that the world is a little bit upside down. What do you think?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's Now, I've just been seeing headlines in the news about there's this guy. He was a lieutenant colonel in the he was in the U.S. Space Force. I don't know if he was Army or Air Force, but he got fired because he was critical of the whole equity thing. Like his theory, and I think in general in the military, is they practice equity. Well, back in World War II, you had the blacks and the whites were separated.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
units.
Yeah.
They became integrated during Korea and Vietnam, and then like military is fairly integrated. And
Yeah.
I think most military people, and I've been in the military, you don't look at the other person as black or white. You look at them as part of your unit. If anything, the only difference is maybe between branches.
Mm-hmm.
You look at that guy's Air Force, or that person's Navy, or
Yeah.
I'm a Ranger and he's a Marine. Like, okay, that's the difference you see.
Yeah.
And he was trying to say, he was criticizing the U.S. Army or the U.S. Armed Forces, where it's headed towards. They're lowering standards in basic training so that women can pass.
Yeah.
The number of push-ups and pull-ups and all that, and that's ridiculous because the enemy are not doing that, and you have the strongest and fittest people fighting for you.
You got to wonder if the Russians and the Chinese are kind of looking at our society and just kind of going,
oh, they're probably overjoyed. They're laughing. They're thinking,
probably.
Yeah.
There's an old saying by who's that Chinese dude that wrote The Art of War?
Sun Tzu?
Somebody like that. And he said, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
I like that.
Yeah. Don't say a word. So we'll see how it all pans out. But it's part of our modern society, and it's a little bit wacky. So, yeah. So anyways.
Yeah, so that's one new thing that I've seen lately that's happening. What else has been in the media that's kind of interesting? I haven't been following the news that often lately.
Me neither. I stay away from it. Well, while you're thinking on that, let me throw you a couple of Camille Paglia quotes.
Okay.
I just remembered one that I was trying to think of a minute ago. A woman simply is what a man must become. I've heard of this before, by the way. Masculinity is risky and elusive. It is achieved by revolt from women, and it is confirmed only by other men. Manhood coerced into sensitivity is no manhood at all. She gets in trouble with a lot of journalists for talking this way. I think there's a lot of truth to what she's saying. Here's another one that'll piss off the feminists. What feminism calls patriarchy is simply civilization, an abstract system designed by men, but augmented and now co-owned by women. Totally true.
Yeah.
I'll give you two more. Woman is the dominant sex. Men have to do all sorts of stuff to prove that they are worthy of women's attention. That'll piss off the feminists. Here's a good one. Last one. Women are in a league with each other, a secret conspiracy of hearts and pheromones. So you talk about pheromones. What is a pheromone? Is it the sex hormone?
I don't know. It's a smell that attracts the opposite sex, and it's well, this is where I don't understand. So if it's a smell, you should be able to smell it, but it's like a scent or something that a person puts off that will attract the opposite sex, male or female.
Pretty much it.
But you can't. But it's on a subconscious level. You don't actually smell the pheromone, but the subconscious does. So it's kind of like okay, so maybe when a woman is ovulating, she has a certain amount of pheromones brewing.
Who knows?
And it attracts men. I don't know enough about pheromones other than it's a scent that actually doesn't smell, which is supposed to attract the opposite sex, and probably on a subconscious level.
Yeah. Well, it was part of her quote, and it's interesting the way she phrased that. Fascinating. So what else you got before we wind her down?
Okay. I was going to say something, but I forgot what it was.
It'll come back to you.
Radioactive. No, I'm just kidding. Steve Martin. I'm radioactive. Yeah. I don't know what else I was going to say. I just what's happening with the world is I think I'm becoming hopeful that the world will do fine. It seems that cooler heads hopefully will prevail. I'm glad that more and more people are waking up to the madness that's happening in the world.
When we say madness, define that in as short a list as is possible.
Oh, the whole diversity, equity,
equality
at all costs,
critical race theory,
socialism, doing things instead of like, it's like all common sense has been abandoned. Like people are tearing statues down, and it really made me feel good that the Academy Awards had an extremely low rating.
All right.
Yes, and that Hollywood is suffering.
You're evil
I
for not
love
being.
it that Hollywood is suffering. I hope these producers or bigwigs in Hollywood end up homeless on the street. That's my mean spirit coming out. But
Yeah.
they even in the music industry, there's not much originality or creativity anymore. It's all a formula to make money and probably for other nefarious reasons to sway a certain way of looking at things. And it does my heart good when I see some actors speak out against it, and then they get canceled or ostracized by their peers.
Mm-hmm.
They'll say something about, well, this is just ridiculous, and then, oh, how can you say that? That's not politically correct or whatever. I can't think of any examples right now, but there are people doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that more of that is happening. People are not as tolerant of the agenda as the agenda setters would think.
I hope you're right.
They might have a fight on their hands.
I hope you're right.
When the COVID, when the parents started homeschooling their children,
right?
A lot of, I don't know about a lot, but they're not bringing their kids back.
No,
because the school system's leftist indoctrination camp. It seems. Yeah. That's from what I hear. The stuff they teach in school is just, instead of teaching math or what you really need to know, they talk about, well, you could be a boy or a girl today or tomorrow, or, we're all like, just ridiculous stuff that no 6 or 7-year-old needs to know.
Some people just go along with the crowd. Some people are woken up to this insanity, and some people are woken up to the insanity and now becoming actively involved as far as resistance is concerned. So maybe that's the trend that you're talking about, that we see more and more of. And that to me is a good thing, because I kind of miss traditional values, old school values. And such. A certain amount of morality is not a bad thing, and a certain amount of abiding by a certain code of ethics for the better of all civilization is a good thing too. So,
like, even comedians now, a lot of comedians are refusing to do campus comedy because their humor is politically incorrect. They're being okay, Bugs Bunny, Looney Tunes, if it started, it would never fly now. There'd be too much. And the movie Animal House, I love that movie. That would be, oh my God, you would have protests in the streets, I think.
Definitely Blazing Saddles.
Yes. So, so people need to get a sense of humor. And
yeah, they do. And when we talk about backlash or people picking up the sort of activism to be in the forefront of that backlash, I think comedians are going to be frontline. They have to be.
Yeah.
If you don't have a healthy sense of humor.
Like Piers Morgan, I knew who Piers Morgan was, and when he did his tirade against Meghan Markle and he refused to back down, I thought, right on, man, right on.
He was just interviewed by somebody. Was it Jordan Peterson?
I don't know.
Einstein fell down.
Yeah,
he was. It was I forget who it was, and it was somebody interviewed him. It was quite interesting. So, yeah. All right. So, are we done till next time?
That is correct.